Hey, Planeswalkers, Mythras here with Friday Night Meta, weekly series here on the channel. Excited to break down everything for you in Magic the Gathering Arena. Right behind me, we get to see Standard, Historic, Alchemy, Explorer, Historic Brawl, and a host of other things going on between Best of 1 and Best of 3 with amazing decks, the top meta plays, and all those things. So appreciate you tuning in as always. Thank you for your support. Those timestamps are available to you down below. Drop me a question or comment if you want to know more, and additionally feel free to swing by the Discord server, my fellow Planeswalkers. All right, so here's what we got going on. Off and heavy into July, brand new season here. The first week that we didn't have a lot of information last week, so wanted to give it a little bit of a breather, but here is what we see and is also typical. Heavy Boros aggro again at the top, coming in from that new Capenna meta, carrying over, continuing to carry over here in Standard Best of 1. Again, Boros Burn right behind it, Selesnya Enchantments. A lot of those decks having really nice win rates here that we can certainly see, and then everything else behind it. Boros Burn making a huge portion of that meta, followed by Mono White aggro. I would say that thing was a little bit better off there at the beginning when I checked last week anyway, in some of those contenders and what we're seeing, and then obviously Selesnya Enchantments making some additional impacts. Now, as we look at what's happening here, in this popularity, like we talked about, you begin to see that Boros control and Boros popping in there, like we talked about, which is a big piece. So that's a little bit different in terms of some of those things that we've previously seen. Now, when we look at these win rates, we also begin to see the same thing, hence why that popularity is picking up. Now, this is everything across the board. Let's go into our more competitive scene. At that competitive scene, we do see a couple things shifting around there. Then we see Azor's control popping in, so that's a little bit newer. Relative to what we've seen at that 3%, we do see a lot of the similar stances going on with everything else. So that is Standard Best of 1. We're going to blow things back out. There's never enough Mythic at this point in the game. Generally, we got to get through half the month. Now we move into Best of 3. Here in Best of 3, we do see Mono Green Stompy taking the lead here. Boros aggro, Teamer Control, Jeskai Hinata, a lot of those very popular decks. Then moving over here, really heavy in these top 5, really being 8 to 12%, which is good to see in terms of that meta proportion, which tends to have us believe it can be a little bit more balanced, which is nice. And then when we look at how everything's trending, we really see that Esper midrange coming down over time. We begin to see that Teamer Control really popping up. That was a big deck last season, still hanging in there, and then everything else that's happening there as well. We see that Mono Green Stompy's kind of going the other way, which is nice over time. And then again here, as we can see some of these win rates, Mono Green really starting to come down. A lot of compression though, relative to where we were when we look at this Teamer Control. We look at that Jeskai Hinata and those kinds of things really tightening up there. Now, as we go into the more competitive space, we see a couple things moving around, quite a decent chunk. Boros aggro, Jeskai Hinata, Teamer Control kind of falling a little bit. Esper midrange, those win rates kind of get a little bit more compressed as well. We have a real nasty spike here in Teamer Control, but it kind of comes back down to earth. And then again, you see these rate compressions. Boros aggro really popping up and getting real aggressive there. And we'll talk a little bit about that here on some forward-thinking tournaments and those kinds of things in terms of impacts. So here we go with Standard. Let's go all the way out. The next big one right now is Alchemy. We had a huge update here. Lots of changes that we're going to talk through here. But right now, to give you kind of the best and the greatest, we got Rakdos Sacrifice, a 4-color combo deck, just absolutely crushing it. Mono Black Control, Mono White aggro, Gruul Werewolves, Mono Green Stompy, Esper midrange, and Rakdos midrange. Again, 25%, 5%, everything else kind of being balanced. This 4-color combo deck really taking off. And then additionally, you can see that Rakdos Sacrifice, so generally having a really nice healthy win rate, and then everything else doing well, like Mono White aggro kind of trending up as well. So if we move over to that more competitive space, here's what we got in Platinum. Same thing, 4-color combo looking really nice. We got Discard, we got Enchantments, we got Esper midrange, and a host of those other things. And again, we still continue to see this 4-color combo kind of coming off there. So those are the key pieces there for Best of 1 in Alchemy. Let's go all the way back and take a step back and see what we got going on in Best of 3. A little bit going on in Best of 3, which is nice to see. So we got Mono Green Stompy, Rakdos Sacrifice, Esper midrange. Again, that 4-color storm that we talked about still playing in there. A big move off that Esper midrange, but that Esper midrange is still in there in terms of those decks. So we'll leave it at that in terms of wide variety and move into a little bit more competitive space, we do see that Esper mid-range doing a little bit better. 4-color Storm, Rakdos Sacrifice, and again, in terms of what we're seeing in that meta. So good to see Alchemy popping back in there, given all the recent changes and things going on. We are now going to move into historic out of the gate here, a little bit less action in terms of what we have going on in July. We got mono red aggro, mono green elves, Azorius auras, Selesnya twins, scroll twin deck. We got aggro elves, Azorius auras. You can see huge 42%, 43%. Not surprised. It's very typical for a start, but that's a huge jump relative to what we were seeing. And then additionally here we see a lot of that other win rate stuff still staying in that space, kind of that general range between that 50-60% in terms of health. Let's go look at the more competitive space. A little bit of a changes there in terms of update. Every other deck being mono red aggro, so you better be on mono red aggro or a hard counter against that, and mono green elves. All right, so let's pull all the way back out. Let's see if there's anything in best of 3. Only Azorius auras at 70% win rate, 30% of that meta. Love that deck, one of my favorites as always. All right, so let's go all the way back here through historic now into explorer. Not a lot playing that right now. Selesnya Angels 98%. Again, this is relative to the players that use Untapped and are playing that. So just a take for you. We'll leave it at that. Let's see if anyone's on best of 3. Rakdos mid range, again, similar style there in terms of what we're seeing right now in the meta. We're going to blow all the way back out and last go to historic brawl. So here in historic brawl, we got Kinnan, Niv Mizzet, Rafine kind of falling off there a little bit. Jetmir, Zika, the first sliver being popped in, Heliod's back in, and Golo's Tireless Pilgrim. You can see everything again between that 2 and 3%. And what's doing well, Heliod's really starting to make a comeback there in terms of win rates. We see that win rate over time, or popularity is what I meant. Win rate over time, a lot of flipping between Rafine there and Kinnan. But we do see that Jetmir popping in and some of these other things, which is great to see in terms of the health of our good old historic brawl. So we're going to back all the way out over to standard here and go into the key impacts. So we did talk about this a little bit when we looked at those statistics. Here's a weekly tournament coming out of Mint State Arena being standard. So one of the things that's interesting that we do see that Boros aggro. So one of the reasons why I didn't want to cover this one here for you today, we do see an Esper aggro deck in there as well, but a ton of really good stuff and impacts, tons of aggro now up there in that meta. Which is slightly surprising, but also not at the same time, given where we saw things on Arena for this week. So pulling it all back in, Planeswalkers, I hope you enjoyed this week's Fast and Furious breakdown of Magic the Gathering Arena's meta and a lot of things that are happening in the space across a format or a bunch of formats in the Streets of New Capenna here for July. We look forward to bringing you a ton more content, lots of decks, fun stuff here on the channel. Appreciate that support as always. Again, questions or comments, feedback, do let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and feel free to swing by that Discord server. Like I said, great ways to stay connected, Planeswalkers. We'll see you again soon. Until next time, Mythras out.